Bus stop. One day I came to visit my friend, stayed late at her place. In the morning I had to get up early to go to university. I was packed to go home. My friend started trying to persuade me to stay overnight at her place. I refused. Then she said that I wouldn't be able to see you off, because the children were small and alone at home. I said, "Bullshit, it's not a long walk to the bus stop." She suddenly got all tense and said I shouldn't leave from the old stop, but to walk a block and leave from another stop, like some devil is going on with this one. I was laughed at her. She said that I should not go to the old bus stops and that I had to walk a block and go to another one. Something damn near as hell was going on. I laughed at her, but promised to walk to the next one. When I went outside, I was immediately freezing. It was November. And I decided to wait for the bus at the old bus stop. When I reached it, it was even colder. The flimsy plywood walls did not protect me from the wind. The lantern above the stop was not on, but it creaked in the wind. I stood like that for about 5 minutes. Then a girl came up to me, and I noticed her clothes, which were very old-fashioned. The girl herself was very beautiful, tall, with long hair, with delicate facial features. She had no makeup on. We got to talking. She said her name was Mary. She was waiting for her boyfriend. They had agreed to meet here, but he was apparently running late. We had a long talk. She was very interesting and I completely forgot about the cold and wind. It seemed like hours had passed. She looked at her watch and sighed and said, "He probably won't come, he forgot." Then a bus pulled up. She said goodbye and went to it. The doors opened and she went in. I came to my senses and rushed off too, as all the buses go by my house. But she stopped me and said, "That's my bus, your next one, it's coming up soon." There was so much sadness in her eyes, my heart just cringed. The bus doors closed, it left. Just like Mary said, my bus pulled up a minute later. Sitting in the bus, I remembered that strange meeting. Something was wrong, but what it was, I could not understand. Already when I got home, I realized everything. I just froze. The old girl's clothes, strange bus, and after all it was very old. There are no such buses now. The bus drove up quietly. I grabbed the phone, began to dial my girlfriend, and stunned, since I left her and how I got home 10 minutes had passed. No way, it felt like over 2 hours to me. I called my friend and told her everything. She was quiet for a few minutes and then she told me. Many years ago, a young girl was waiting at a bus stop for her boyfriend. He was 10 minutes late. She left. The bus crashed on the way. The girl died. Since then, for many years, the girl has been waiting for her lover and without waiting, she leaves. Few people survive after meeting her. Most often people just freeze to death at the bus stop. Some run out on the road under the wheels of cars. Some die exactly 40 days after meeting her. Gift. The room greeted me with emptiness and loneliness. I lay on the bed with my phone and didn't move until midnight. I fell into social media. It happens. I woke up when the time read 0:35. Wow. Time for bed. I went under the covers with those thoughts. I started to fall asleep, and then the doorbell rang. I didn't immediately realize that this was really happening. Maybe I was imagining it? Then another stream of sound entered my sleepy consciousness. Who the hell was out there at night? Reluctantly, I got out of bed and headed for the door. It was dark in the hallway. I opened the first door, peering through the peephole. My eyes were slipping, but after blinking a little, I saw that there was a girl standing outside the door, with her head down. She was dressed in a dirty white tattered dress, her hair hanging down to cover her face. A slightly swollen figure, bluish pale skin, chunks of meat falling off her body. The blood froze in my veins, and I recoiled, hitting the second door and waking up in bed. Sleep. I got up and headed for the bathroom. I got out into the hallway and froze in horror. The first door was open, so I really looked through the peephole. I ran back into the room, forgetting about the natural need. Dialed the number of a friend, shaking with fear, and told about what happened. Feel better. After that, I was able to sleep. The night of the next day rang. Again? She pinched herself 5 times, groaned from the pain, and realized that this was not a dream. Out into the hallway. Fear permeated every nerve. I looked through the peephole. She was standing. I looked closely. Her head was down, no face could be seen. And then she raised her head and looked straight through the peephole with eyes as white as snow, spewing in a hoarse voice, "Let me in." I ran to my room and called my friend. She was shocked, and I was hysterical. And this was repeated every night. I never went out to look, because I knew what I was going to see. The other day I was sitting at the window, crying, greedily inhaling my cigarette. Not only that this every night brings me to hysterics, so also my fiancé completely lost his fear. In general, the mood was lousy. I looked at my watch and thought, soon it will come, damned. Did not have time to think, as it appeared outside the window. Standing. She didn't say a word. My heart sank in my heels. And she put her hand on the glass and stood there, waiting. I thought it couldn't get any worse, so I put my hand on the glass. I felt like I was flying, and I blacked out. I woke up because I had fallen off the windowsill. While I was fainting, I had a dream that this girl killed herself. She drowned herself out of unhappy love. She asked me to tell her lover that she loved him still and would never leave him. Bad luck for a guy. What can I say? She told me his first and last name. I found him on Facebook. We met. I told him everything. He believed me. He said she came to him for 9 days after she died, too. That was the end of the story. I lit a candle in church for the rest of her soul. Now I can sleep at night again. The other day I woke up to a noise under the window. The hooligans had gathered under the window again, keeping me awake. Pulled back the curtain, and there is a boy standing there. 5 or 6 years old. He was blue and covered in rags, and he was looking at me and laughing. I was hysterical again. What to do? I dialed a number and complained to my friend. She will soon go crazy because of me, probably. Went to a seer, told her what was going on. And she said, it's a gift to help the undead to rest. But beware. Anything wrong, and you yourself become a corpse. What a gift. This has to stop. I want to live. A house in a cemetery. This story was told to me by my grandfather. There was a cemetery. There was a cemetery where military men were buried who had been killed in the war. Many years later, the cemetery was torn down by a rich man. His house was built there. But 3 years later, the owner of the house disappeared under strange circumstances. The house was given to the state. Many years later, this house was bought by a very wealthy family. It consisted of 5 people, namely a father, a mother, 2 daughters, and 1 son. At first, everything was quiet. They lived and were happy. But then they began to hear rustles, voices, and saw strange and sometimes scary shadows. Objects moved on their own. At night, the boy wanted to drink water and went into the kitchen. He heard something coming from there. He looked around the corner and saw a scary shadow. His legs trembled and he could not say a word. It looked at him. He was greatly frightened and ran to his parents, who were asleep and had heard nothing. When he told them what he had seen, of course they did not believe him. But her parents also began to notice that something was amiss. One day my husband returned from a business trip and everyone was asleep. He got hungry and went to the kitchen. When he came back from a business trip, the TV was off, but when he came back from the kitchen, He saw that the TV was on and had been switched to a channel, which seemed a little strange. So he went to bed. The next day his father left for work, his daughters went to school, and his mother took his son to daycare and came home. She was standing and washing the dishes, and suddenly she heard the computer start up. Mom went to look, but the computer was off. She became very scared. She called her husband, who said she was imagining things. She took a sedative and went to bed. Her husband came home from work and began to calm her down. She didn't tell her children the story. And suddenly she receives a text message from her husband, "I'm going to be late for work." Her wife becomes visibly pale, but she says nothing to the person who pretends to be her husband. They began to eat dinner. Mom told the children to go to bed. Then she began to talk to the creature called her husband. She began to pray to herself and the creature hissed and disappeared. The husband's wife tells him everything, and he understands that he must get out of this cursed house. Just as they decided to do that, the damned thing started. The next day they found their daughter dead. Her eyes were rolled back like when she was frightened and her whole body was covered with bites and scratches. The doctors determined that the bites and scratches were not from an object, but from claws, but not human or animal. Worse things were in store for everyone else. The next day the father went to the basement and disappeared. He was gone for 2 hours and his wife came down to get him. From what she saw, she flew out of the basement screaming in horror. The husband was brutally murdered and had a lot of cuts and bites. The wife called the police and they investigated but found no traces or fingerprints of the killer. It was the vacations for both kindergarten and school. So everyone was home. Mom was doing her homework and the kids were playing on the computer. And suddenly the TV was on and there was a prophylactic and it was written in blood, "I will kill you all." Mom saw this and immediately began to gather things. And suddenly her daughter screamed. My mother ran and saw something had gone into a dark corner. Her daughter was scared to death. So they sold the house and left. They found a note in the car that said, "I'll get you," and the new owners of the house had no idea what was ahead of them.